Our reading today is taken from Matthew 16, verses 13 to 20. Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Now, before we do anything else, we have to notice what the popular opinion of Jesus was in his day. When he asks his disciples what the word on the street is about him, they offer him a list of names. People seem to think at first that Jesus is some reincarnated version or transmigrated soul of some great prophet of the past, even the recent past, as in the case of John the Baptist. But John the Baptist's head, you'll remember, got chopped off. Elijah was called the troublemaker of Israel, and Jeremiah, when people didn't like what he had to say, they plotted to kill him. So that's who they think Jesus is. That's the kind of person they think Jesus is. And so if nothing else today, we have to disavow ourselves of this idea that Jesus was some placid hippie walking around in sandals whispering all we are saying is give peace a chance. The general consensus was that for all the power and goodness and love and kindness that Jesus clearly demonstrated in and through his life, he was no meek and mild wallflower. They don't crucify wallflowers. Jesus was a troublemaker. But Jesus asked the question not because he's concerned about his reputation. This question is not for his sake. This question is for his disciples. This question is for us. Who do you say that I am? Our answer to that question fundamentally affects our lives. And if I have to persuade you of anything today, I think that's the thing I have to ask of you. Would you believe today that our answer to that question, no matter who we are, our answer to that question fundamentally affects our lives? I know that you can't easily talk in absolutes about anything really, but you'll know what I mean when I say to you that for 2,000 years, Jesus has been the most defining person in human history. Whether you love him or blaspheme him, whether you mock him or worship him, whether you accept him or reject him, almost every person on the planet knows something about Jesus and has some opinion about him. A.W. Tozer made a famous assertion in his book, The Knowledge of the Holy, when he says, "What comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us." What comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. Because we are always, our life is structured, it's orientated towards what we think about God, our idea of God. Our lives are directed, our lives are spent according to what we think about God. And this is not only true of individuals, it's also true of church communities. A church becomes what it believes to be true about God. When I was a brand new minister in Johannesburg with Peter Story as my senior minister, he said to me that the health of a congregation can be measured by the content of its intercessory prayers. Because it's in our intercessions that we reveal what we care about, and we also reveal what we think God cares about. So Jesus' question to Peter is an all-important question for us to consider. In our passage today, Jesus knows what's coming. He knows what's about to happen. Very soon he will be arrested, he'll be tried, and he'll be crucified. And Peter will not survive, the disciples will not survive the next weeks without this question. This is a life-saving question. This question will be Peter's anchor in a storm he cannot yet imagine. This will be the one sure ground he can turn to when he fails and falls, which he begins to do with alarming regularity from now on in the gospel. Because in the verses immediately after the ones we read today, Jesus predicts his death. And in that short space of time, Peter has already forgotten who he's described Jesus to be. So when Jesus says, I'm going to die, Peter says, you're never going to die on my watch. And Jesus kind of takes Peter on in quite a firm way. He says, get behind me, Satan. Get behind me, you hindrance. You're trying to trip me up, Peter, so stop it. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Even those of us who have magnificent revelations, affirmed by Jesus, given by the Father, even we can forget who Jesus is very quickly. So the question, who do you say I am, is not a once-in-a-lifetime question. It's not an answer or a puzzle to some quiz. It's not a theological test that Jesus is giving the disciples. The question is for every day we awake, we listen for the voice of Jesus to say, Rowan, who do you say today, who do you say that I am? Because my answer to that question will affect how I live the rest of the day. In the Appalachian region of the United States, there are a few, they're called snake handling churches. Their doctrine is based on just one of the closing verses of Mark's Gospel. And they have formulated their idea of Jesus around that single verse. And so as a part of their worship, they pass one or more venomous snakes around. It's not the most popular church denomination you can understand, but it's there. It happens because someone has an idea about God. Others have an idea that God is there to make us rich, and there are churches that seek to do that. Some have an idea that if we tell God what to do and we have the right amount of faith when we do that, then God will obey us. We can get God to do anything we want him to do as long as we have the right amount of faith. Some have an idea that God is there to make us feel better about ourselves. He's our divine little narcotic with which we can inject ourselves whenever we need it. And some have an idea that all God wants us to do is to suffer. Just to suffer. That's all he wants from us. I think, I couldn't find it online, but I think there was a time when Jacob Zuma suggested that Jesus was a member of his political party or would align himself with his political party. And politicians have been trying to do that all the way through the centuries and still up until today. There are politicians trying to co-opt Jesus into their political movements. And so Tozer was right. What we think about God becomes the most important thing about us. Even for the atheist, this question is true. So Jesus puts this question in front of his disciples. He puts this question in front of us every day. Every day. Who do you say that I am? If I'm honest, I must confess that I think that there are times when I like to try and to create God in my own image. To make a God which suits me, a God who agrees with me, a God who will damn the people I want to damn, a God who loves the same people I love, and a God who loves the things that I love. It's easy to do that, which is why I'm cautious, by the way, in our worship of trying to avoid songs or hymns that emphasize too much the phrase my God or my Jesus, because I think it can feed our notion that somehow God is our possession, we can make him into what we want him to be. And whilst it's not untrue that God is ours, it is a far deeper truth that we are God's. So this simple question that Jesus asks of those early disciples, and he asks of the disciples today, that question won't let me get away with making a God of my own convenience. Every time I try to answer the question, who do you say that I am? I keep bumping into a God who forgives those who curse him, and who then obviously wants me to do the same. I find a God who loves the poor with deep compassion, and he clearly wants me to do the same. I find a God who takes time to bind up the broken and has the patience to bind up the broken. And I think he asks me to do the same. I come across a God who tells me that I cannot love both God and money. And I come across a God who says that we show our love for him not so much in the songs we sing or the prayers we pray, but that our love for him is demonstrated in how we love one another. And there are a host of other things, you'll know some of them, but there are a host of other uncomfortable things that Jesus demonstrates, lives for us, exemplifies for us, to which he calls you and I to become. Jesus didn't have a reputation as a troublemaker for nothing. He comes and he unsettles our lives. In recent weeks, I felt the need for some gentle words. I think many of us feel the need for gentle words in these days, and it's understandable. It really is so understandable. We need comfort, we need strength, we need someone to tell us it's going to be okay. And I've sometimes thought how I wish Jesus, the troublemaker, would just leave me alone. Just let me be for a while. But I think he loves me too much to do that. And I'm sure he loves you too much to do that. Every day, Jesus asks, so, who do you say that I am?